Military intervention seemed the only remaining option. Eunji's approach was unlike anything the diplomatic corps had ever witnessed. She didn't arrive with weapons or threats. Instead, she brought understanding. Her presentation broke down the conflict not as a military problem, but as a complex social misunderstanding. Juno watched from an observation deck, his heart racing with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. He had guided her, but the final steps were hers alone. The transformation from a warrior of destruction to a bridge of understanding was complete. Her communication strategy was brilliant. She didn't minimize the pain of either civilization. Instead, she highlighted their similarities: shared cultural practices, similar economic challenges, mutual technological developments that had gone unrecognized. Where previous negotiations had focused on differences, she focused on connections. The representatives from both planetary systems were confused. They had expected a military intervention, a show of force. Instead, they received a nuanced analysis that exposed the complex web of misunderstandings that had driven their conflict. For the first time, Eunji spoke about her own transformation. She shared her journey from a warrior who saw only conflict to someone who understood the power of communication. Her story became a living example of how understanding could replace destruction. The negotiation lasted 3 standard days. Where previous attempts had collapsed within hours, this session continued with increasing complexity and mutual respect. Juno watched as Eunji used every lesson he had taught her: patience, empathy, strategic listening. Her first genuine laugh echoed through the diplomatic station. It was unexpected, raw, completely unfiltered. The sound was so human, so real that it momentarily stopped all conversations. A warrior who was once feared across multiple worlds was now bringing people together through understanding. The treaty that emerged was more than a political document. It was a blueprint for mutual cooperation, a path to shared development that no one had previously imagined possible. 2 civilizations that would have destroyed each other were now planning joint scientific missions. Juno felt something close to pride. He hadn't created this transformation. He had simply provided a window of possibility. Eunji had walked through that window, becoming something entirely new. The Krellin High Command watched the proceedings with a mixture of confusion and growing understanding. Their most successful warrior had accomplished more through communication than through 1,000 military campaigns. She was rewriting their entire understanding of conflict resolution. News of her actions spread quickly across galactic communication networks. She was no longer just a warrior to be feared. She had become a symbol of potential, of the possibility of change. Civilizations that had seen her as a threat now saw her as a potential ally. Her ship, the Shadow Razor, was now a diplomatic vessel. Its weapon systems remained, but they were no longer the primary feature. Now, it carried the potential for communication, for understanding. A weapon of destruction had become a bridge of connection. The universe watched this transformation, a single individual challenging entire systems of thought. Eunji had discovered something more powerful than destruction: the ability to see beyond immediate conflict, to understand the complex humanity in every being. As the diplomatic meetings concluded, Juno approached her. No words were necessary. Their connection had moved beyond language, beyond traditional communication. They had discovered something more profound: the universal language of genuine understanding. Would you like me to elaborate on any part of this final section? Retroclaude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Taiwan took a cautious bite and was surprised by the pleasant, slightly sweet flavor with hints of something like mint. This is delicious. It is a child's dish, Yuna explained. Simple flavors. Adults prefer more complexity, but this serves as an introduction. They sat at the small dining table, Taiwan continuing to enjoy the alien food, while Yuna watched him with those unblinking eyes. Tomorrow, Taiwan said between bites, we have an orientation meeting with Director Jin at 900. After that, I thought perhaps you could show me how to properly prepare for meeting with the Neuralite ambassador next week. That would be wise, Yuna replied. Human greeting customs could cause offense if performed incorrectly. Like what? Tadwan asked. For example, showing bare skin is considered extremely intimate among Neuralites. We never remove our outer covering in public. Taewon nodded. I'll make sure my uniform is properly buttoned then. Do humans remove their coverings often? Yuna asked, curiosity evident in her voice. Well, we change clothes daily, and of course for bathing and sleeping, we wear different things, or sometimes nothing at all in private. Ta-Won explained, not realizing how strange this might sound to a being whose skin was essentially permanent. Yuna's color shifted to a pale blue that Ta-Won couldn't interpret. Fascinating. This was not in our cultural briefing materials. The evening continued with more exchanges of basic cultural information. Taiwan learned that Neuralites rested by entering a meditative state for short periods rather than sleeping for long stretches. Yuna discovered that humans used water not just for cleansing, but also for recreation. Swimming, for enjoyment. She asked, clearly puzzled. Yes, many humans love being in water, Taiwan explained. Don't Neuralites swim? Only for necessity, she replied, though the salt pools are pleasant for healing and maintenance. As the station's lighting dimmed to simulate evening, Taiwan fought back a yawn. I should rest soon. Humans need about 8 hours of sleep each night. 8 hours of unconsciousness. Yuna seemed shocked. How do you maintain awareness of your surroundings? We don't, Taiwan said with a smile. That's why we have secure quarters. Yuna made another complex gesture with her hands. I will use this time to send my initial observations to the cultural office. Your sleeping period provides efficient time for my reports. As Taiwan prepared for bed, he reflected on their first day together. Despite the initial misunderstanding about their roles, he felt optimistic about working with Yuna. There would be challenges ahead, but also discoveries that could benefit both species. What he couldn't possibly know was how one simple, everyday human habit would soon lead to the biggest breakthrough in human Neuralite relations since first contact. Literally 3 weeks passed since Yuna arrived at Harmony Station. Life with a Neuralite roommate had brought daily surprises for Tadwan. He learned that Yuna needed to stand in her salt pool for exactly 17 minutes each afternoon, her 4 feet submerged while her skin absorbed minerals. She learned that humans became irritable without coffee, a concept she found both amusing and primitive. This morning was especially busy. The quarterly diplomatic summit between humans and Neuralites would begin in just 2 hours, and Taiwan had overslept after staying up late preparing his presentation. Officer Park, your alarm has sounded 3 times. Yuna called through his bedroom door. The meeting preparations require your attention. Taewon jumped out of bed, his usually neat black hair sticking up in all directions. I'll be right out. Can you check if my formal uniform is ready? It is pressed and waiting in the common area, Yuna replied. I will prepare your morning caffeine ritual while you clean yourself. Taewon smiled despite his rush. Yuna always referred to his shower as the cleaning ritual and his coffee as the caffeine ritual. Her formal way of speaking was gradually becoming endearing rather than strange. He hurried into the bathroom, turned on the shower, and stepped under the hot water. The steam helped clear his mind as he mentally reviewed his presentation points. This would be his first time addressing the full Neuralite delegation, and he wanted to make a good impression. His communicator beeped urgently from the counter. Taiwan cursed under his breath. That specific tone meant a message from Director Jin, his supervisor. He quickly rinsed the soap from his body, turned off the water, and grabbed a towel. Wrapping it around his waist, he reached for the communicator with still dripping hands. The message made his heart sink. Meeting moved up by 30 minutes, due to Ambassador Vox's schedule change. Be at conference room A by 8:30 instead of 900. Bring all prepared materials. Taiwan looked at the time. 7:45. He had significantly less time than planned. Yuna, he called out. The meeting's been moved up. I need to hurry. He didn't hear her response over the bathroom fan. Rushing to read the rest of Jin's message, he didn't notice the bathroom door sliding open. Officer Park, I have received notification of the schedule change. Your beverage is. Yuna stopped mid-sentence as she entered, carrying his coffee mug in one of her 4 hands. For a moment, they both froze in surprise. Tae-won stood there, wet hair dripping onto his shoulders, the small towel wrapped loosely around his waist. Most of his body was exposed, his chest, arms, legs, and back all visible to Yuna's large, unblinking eyes. I apologize for the intrusion, Yuna said after a moment, but she didn't turn away. Instead, her skin began to pulse with rapid color changes, shifting from blue to green to purple and back again. Tae-won clutched the towel tighter, feeling his face grow hot with embarrassment. It's okay, I should have locked the door. Could you please? But Yuna wasn't moving. She simply stared, her colors continuing to shift in what Tae-won now recognized as the neuralite sign of extreme emotional response. Yuna, he said uncertainly. She stepped forward, setting down the coffee mug on the counter. One of her hands lifted slightly, as if she wanted to touch him, then quickly withdrew. Your outer covering, it is not permanent, she finally asked, her voice containing a note Tae-won had never heard before, something like wonder mixed with confusion. My outer? Oh, you mean my skin? Yes, this is my skin, Tae-won explained, still very aware of his near-nakedness. The towel is just cloth to dry myself. But your previous outer layer, the blue uniform. Tae-won suddenly understood the confusion. Those are clothes, Yuna. They're not part of my body. Humans wear different artificial coverings that we can change. Yuna's colors pulsed even more rapidly. You can remove your outer layer at will and replace it with different materials. Yes, of course. Don't neuralites have any form of clothing? Yuna seemed to be processing this information with great difficulty. Our protective carapace grows with us from birth. It adapts and changes color with our emotional and physical states, but it cannot be removed without causing severe injury or death. Now it was Tae-won's turn to be surprised. You mean your skin is like permanent clothing? Not exactly. It is living tissue, but yes, it serves similar purposes to your artificial coverings. Her eyes moved over his exposed skin with scientific curiosity. Your actual flesh is so reactive. As if on cue, goosebumps appeared on Tae-won's arms from the cool air in the bathroom. Yuna gasped. Your surface is changing texture. How is this possible? Tae-won looked down at his arms. Oh, these are just goosebumps. They happen when I'm cold. It's an automatic response. Automatic textural adaptation without conscious control. Yuna's voice was filled with amazement. And these markings? She gestured toward a small scar on his shoulder. That's a scar from when I was injured as a child. Our skin heals, but sometimes leaves marks. Yuna's colors had settled into a deep, vibrant blue that Tae-won had never seen before. This is revolutionary information, Officer Park. Suddenly remembering the time, Tae-won glanced at his communicator. I really need to get dressed for that meeting. Could you give me some privacy? Of course, Yuna said, backing toward the door, though her eyes remained fixed on him. I will prepare your materials for transport. After she left, Tae-won quickly dried off and dressed in his formal uniform. When he emerged from his room, Yuna was waiting with his briefcase and a fresh cup of coffee. Thank you, he said, taking the items from her. The awkwardness between them was palpable. Officer Park, Yuna said as he prepared to leave, may I request permission to discuss what I observed with my scientific liaison? The biological differences I witnessed have significant implications for our understanding of human physiology. Tae-won hesitated. You want to tell other neuralites about seeing me naked? Not about the social circumstance, Yuna clarified quickly, her color shifting to a lighter blue. About the biological revelations, we had fundamentally misunderstood human physiology. We believed your uniforms were part of your bodies, an evolutionary adaptation similar to our carapace. Taewon was stunned. You thought our clothes were part of us, like grown from our bodies. Yes. The concept of completely removable artificial coverings is unknown among my people. We have decorative additions to our carapace, but nothing that fully covers or replaces it. Taewon considered this as he sipped his coffee. No wonder Yuna had been so shocked. I suppose you can discuss the scientific aspects, but please be discreet about the circumstances. Of course, the accidental nature of the observation will remain private. As Taewon hurried out the door toward his meeting, he had no idea that this awkward bathroom encounter would soon become the talk of the entire station, not as a scandal, but as a scientific breakthrough that would transform human neuralite relations forever. Behind him, Yuma immediately activated her communication device. "Connect me to Chief Scientist Minho," she said urgently. "I have made a discovery about humans that changes everything we thought we knew." Retri Taewon's presentation to the Neuralite delegation went well, but he couldn't ignore the strange atmosphere in the room. Several of the Neuralite officials kept staring at him with unusual intensity. Their skin colors shifted to deep blue whenever he spoke directly to them, the same color Yuna had displayed in the bathroom earlier. When the meeting ended, Director Jin pulled him aside. "Whatever you did, they're fascinated by you," she said. "Ambassador Vox has requested a private meeting tomorrow." Taewon nodded, not wanting to explain what had happened. "I'll be prepared, Director." When he returned to his quarters that evening, he found Yuna waiting with an unusual expression, her skin pulsing between shades of blue and green. "Officer Park, I must apologize for a breach of protocol," she said formally. "I shared the physiological observations with Chief Scientist Minho, but the information has spread more widely than anticipated." Taewon set down his bag. "What do you mean?" "The entire Neuralite scientific community on the station is discussing human skin characteristics. They have requested formal scientific observation sessions." "They want to study my skin?" Taewon asked, uncomfortable with the idea. "Not just yours," Yuna explained. "All human dermal features. The discovery that humans have adaptable, responsive skin tissue rather than a fixed protective layer has enormous implications." Before Taewon could respond, his communicator beeped. It was Director Jin. "Park, whatever you did has caused quite a stir. The Neuralite science team has submitted an urgent request for a joint biological research initiative focused on human dermal characteristics. Ambassador Vox called it potentially the most significant advancement in xenobiology this decade. Can you explain what's going on?" Taewon sighed. "It's a bit embarrassing, Director. Yuna accidentally saw me, undressed, after my shower this morning. Apparently, Neuralites didn't understand that our clothes aren't part of our bodies." There was silence on the other end. Then Director Jin burst into laughter. "You're telling me that all this excitement is because an alien saw you naked?" "Essentially, yes," Taewon admitted, his face growing hot. "They thought our uniforms were like their carapace, a permanent part of us." "This is priceless," Jin said, still chuckling. "But seriously, this could be a major breakthrough in relations. The Neuralites have always been hesitant to share biological information. If your exposure has opened a door for scientific cooperation, we need to follow through." The next morning, Taewon found himself in a meeting room with Ambassador Vox, Chief Scientist Minho, Director Jin, and several other officials from both species. Yuna sat nearby, her role elevated from household assistant to cultural interpreter. Ambassador Vox spoke first. His carapace was an impressive array of blue and gold patterns, indicating his high status. "Officer Park, your willingness to share biological information with Yuna of House Fenlith has created an opportunity for unprecedented cooperation between our peoples." Taewon shifted uncomfortably. "I'm happy to help advance our understanding, Ambassador, though the circumstances were accidental." Chief Scientist Minho stepped forward. Unlike the ambassador, his carapace was simpler, with subtle patterns that shifted slightly as he moved. "Officer Park, may I ask some direct questions about human physiology?" "Of course," Ta-One replied, trying to sound professional despite feeling like a specimen under examination. "These goosebumps that Yuna observed, they appear automatically in response to temperature." "Yes, or sometimes strong emotions like fear." Minho's colors pulsed with excitement. "And your perspiration system, it releases water through the skin to cool your body." "That's right. We call it sweating." The neuralites in the room all displayed color changes indicating strong emotion. Ambassador Vox turned to Director Jin. "Your species has evolved with direct environmental adaptation capabilities that are automatic and immediate. This is extraordinary." Director Jin looked pleased but confused. "Don't neuralites have similar adaptations?" "No," Minho explained. "Our carapace protects us, but it changes slowly. We cannot rapidly adjust to environmental conditions. We must either endure or leave unsuitable environments." One of the other neuralite scientists spoke up. "For generations, we have suffered from a condition called carapace rigidity syndrome. It prevents proper adaptation to environmental changes and affects 1 in 50 neuralite children. Your skin's adaptability might hold the key to treatment." Tae-One began to understand why his shower incident had caused such excitement. "You think studying human skin could help neuralite children?" "Potentially," Minho said. "The principles behind your automatic responses could revolutionize our medical approach to CRS." After the meeting, a formal research agreement was drafted. Human and neuralite scientists would work together to study dermal adaptability, with the goal of developing treatments for carapace rigidity syndrome. Back in their quarters, Yuna seemed different, more animated than Tae-One had ever seen her. "You've been promoted?" Ta-One asked, noticing an additional marking on her official insignia. "Yes," she said, her colors bright with pride. "I am now classified as a senior cultural discovery specialist. My accidental observation has been deemed the most significant xenobiological discovery of the past 5 years." Tae-One couldn't help but laugh. "All because you walked in on me in the bathroom. It illustrates an important principle in scientific discovery," Yuna said seriously. "Major breakthroughs often occur through unexpected observations rather than planned experimentation." Over the following days, Harmony Station buzzed with activity. A special research team arrived from Earth, bringing equipment for detailed study of human skin characteristics. Several neuralite specialists also came aboard, setting up laboratories dedicated to comparing human and neuralite biological responses. Tae-One found himself invited to countless meetings and briefings. At one particularly memorable session, he watched in amazement as human scientists demonstrated goosebumps, sweating, and blushing to an audience of captivated neuralites. "The speed of your dermal responses is remarkable," one neuralite researcher commented. "Our carapace takes days to adjust to similar stimuli." Not everyone was thrilled with the new focus on human skin. Some humans on the station complained about feeling like lab rats and objected to the constant requests for samples and tests. "It's dehumanizing," complained one engineer to Tae-One in the dining hall. "They look at us like we're fascinating specimens instead of people." Tae-One understood the concern. It's a culture shock for both sides. They've never encountered beings who can change their outer layer at will. "But you're not just a piece of skin, are you?" Yuna asked later when Tae-One mentioned these complaints. "You are a complete being with thoughts and feelings. Is this not understood?" Tae-One smiled. "It's understood, but sometimes people feel reduced to just their biology when they're being studied so intensely." Yuna's colors shifted to a thoughtful purple. "Among my people, sharing biological information is considered deeply intimate. Perhaps this is why humans feel uncomfortable. You are sharing something that, for us, would only be shared with family or medical practitioners." This perspective helped Tae-One develop new guidelines for the research initiative, ensuring that human participants felt respected rather than objectified. By the end of the month, preliminary research results were promising. The Neuralite team had identified several mechanisms in human skin that might be adapted to help children with carapace rigidity syndrome. Your small bathroom incident may end up saving thousands of Neuralite lives, Director Jin told Taiwan during their weekly review. I never imagined being seen naked would lead to diplomatic success, Taiwan admitted. Diplomacy works in mysterious ways, Jin replied with a smile. Sometimes the most human moments create the strongest bonds between species. That evening, as Taiwan and Yuna shared a meal in their quarters, him eating earth food, her consuming Neuralite nutrients, he realized how much their relationship had changed. What began as an awkward cultural exchange had become a genuine partnership, all because of an embarrassing moment that revealed just how different, and yet how similar, their species really were. Retry 2 months after the bathroom incident, Harmony Station had transformed. What was once a simple diplomatic outpost now buzzed with scientific activity. The East Wing had been converted into research laboratories, where human and Neuralite scientists worked side by side, studying skin samples and running tests on voluntary human participants. Tae-won sat in Director Jin's office, reviewing the latest progress report. The director looked pleased as she scrolled through the data on her tablet. The ambassador is calling it the Dermal Diplomacy Initiative, she said, unable to hide her smile. Your naked mishap has become the cornerstone of our scientific cooperation. Tae-won winced. I wish everyone would stop referring to it that way. History rarely remembers our dignified moments, Jin replied. But results speak for themselves. Look at these numbers. She turned the tablet to show him. Over 50 Neuralite scientists had come to the station in the past month. Research funding had increased tenfold. Most importantly, early tests for treating carapace rigidity syndrome were showing promise. Chief Scientist Minho wants you to attend the first clinical trial next week, Jin said. They're using a synthetic protein inspired by human sweat glands to treat a young Neuralite with severe CRS. Me? Why? Ta-won asked, surprised. You're the face of this initiative, whether you like it or not. The Neuralites see you as the bridge between our species. As Ta-won left the office, he noticed a group of humans gathered in the common area, looking unhappy. He recognized several of them from the engineering department. Park, just the man we wanted to see, called out Jun, a tall engineer with a perpetual frown. We need to talk about these research requests. Tae-won stopped. What's the problem? Jun handed him a tablet. Look at this. They want skin samples from 30 more human volunteers. They're asking for sweat collection during exercise. Some scientists even requested to observe humans bathing. That last request was denied immediately, Tae-won said, scanning the document. But it was made in the first place, Jun exclaimed. We're not lab specimens. We're engineers, diplomats, maintenance workers. We didn't sign up to be studied like animals in a zoo. Other humans nodded in agreement. Tae-won could see their frustration was genuine. I understand your concerns, he said carefully. I'll speak with the research team about respecting personal boundaries. It's more than that, said another engineer named Hyun. The Neuralites look at us differently now. They stare at our hands, our faces. Yesterday one asked if he could touch my arm to feel the hair. It's uncomfortable. Tae-won promised to address their concerns and continued toward his quarters, his mind troubled. The scientific breakthrough was important, but he hadn't considered how it might affect daily life for humans on the station. When he entered his living space, he found Yuna engaged in a video call with several high-ranking Neuralites. Her colors were bright with excitement, but she quickly ended the call when she saw him. Officer Park, I have excellent news, she said. The High Council has approved full funding for the Joint Research Initiative, and they want to honor you with the Order of Scientific Cooperation, the highest award a non-Neuralite can receive. That's unexpected, Ta-won replied, still distracted by the engineer's complaints. Yuna noticed his subdued reaction. You seem troubled. Has something happened? Tae-won explained the concerns of the human crew members. Yuna listened carefully, her colors shifting to a thoughtful blue. "I see," she said when he finished. "We have been insensitive. In our excitement over the scientific discovery, we forgot that humans have different concepts of privacy and dignity." "It's not just that," Ta-One added. "Some humans feel reduced to their biology, like the only interesting thing about them is their skin." Yuna's colors darkened. "This was not our intention. For us, biological information is sacred. Sharing it is an act of profound trust and intimacy. That's precisely why there's a disconnect," Ta-One explained. "What feels respectful to Neuralites feels invasive to humans." Military intervention seemed the only remaining option. Yunji's approach was unlike anything the diplomatic corps had ever witnessed. She didn't arrive with weapons or threats. Instead, she brought understanding. Her presentation broke down the conflict not as a military problem, but as a complex social misunderstanding. Junho watched from an observation deck, his heart racing with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. He had guided her, but the final steps were hers alone. The transformation from a warrior of destruction to a bridge of understanding was complete. Her communication strategy was brilliant. She didn't minimize the pain of either civilization. Instead, she highlighted their similarities. Shared cultural practices, similar economic challenges, mutual technological developments that had gone unrecognized. Where previous negotiations had focused on differences, she focused on connections. The representatives from both planetary systems were confused. They had expected a military intervention, a show of force. Instead, they received a nuanced analysis that exposed the complex web of misunderstandings that had driven their conflict. For the first time, Yunji spoke about her own transformation. She shared her journey from a warrior who saw only conflict to someone who understood the power of communication. Her story became a living example of how understanding could replace destruction. The negotiation lasted 3 standard days. Where previous attempts had collapsed within hours, this session continued with increasing complexity and mutual respect. Junho watched as Yunji used every lesson he had taught her: patience, empathy, strategic listening. Her first genuine laugh echoed through the diplomatic station. It was unexpected, raw, completely unfiltered. The sound was so human, so real that it momentarily stopped all conversations. A warrior who was once feared across multiple worlds was now bringing people together through understanding. The treaty that emerged was more than a political document. It was a blueprint for mutual cooperation, a path to shared development that no one had previously imagined possible. 2 civilizations that would have destroyed each other were now planning joint scientific missions. Junho felt something close to pride. He hadn't created this transformation. He had simply provided a window of possibility. Yunji had walked through that window, becoming something entirely new. The Krellin High Command watched the proceedings with a mixture of confusion and growing understanding. Their most successful warrior had accomplished more through communication than through 1,000 military campaigns. She was rewriting their entire understanding of conflict resolution. News of her actions spread quickly across galactic communication networks. She was no longer just a warrior to be feared. She had become a symbol of potential, of the possibility of change. Civilizations that had seen her as a threat now saw her as a potential ally. Her ship, the Shadow Razor, was now a diplomatic vessel. Its weapon systems remained, but they were no longer the primary feature. Now it carried the potential for communication, for understanding. A weapon of destruction had become a bridge of connection. The universe watched this transformation, a single individual challenging entire systems of thought. Yunji had discovered something more powerful than destruction: the ability to see beyond immediate conflict, to understand the complex humanity in every being. As the diplomatic meetings concluded, Junho approached her. No words were necessary. Their connection had moved beyond language, beyond traditional communication. They had discovered something more profound: the universal language of genuine understanding. Would you like me to elaborate on any part of this final section? Retroclaude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Eunji's arrival was like a storm entering a quiet room. Her combat suit, designed for maximum efficiency, seemed out of place among the academic equipment. Her eyes scanned every corner, every potential threat point. A habit so deeply ingrained, it was more instinct than conscious action. Junho began not with formal introductions, but with a story. He spoke about his grandmother's small kitchen on Earth, about how she would make traditional Korean rice cakes during difficult times. Food, he explained, is more than nutrition. It's a language of comfort. The Krellin warrior had been trained to dismiss such narratives as unnecessary emotional noise. But something in Junho's voice was different. He wasn't trying to manipulate her. He was simply sharing an experience. He explained how his grandmother would laugh while cooking, how that laughter could change the entire mood of a room. Eunji had never understood laughter. To her, it was an illogical sound, a waste of energy, a sign of weakness. But Junho described it as a form of human healing. Their conversation moved through complex topics: conflict resolution, cultural understanding, the nature of communication. But beneath the technical language, something unexpected was happening. Junho was teaching Eunji about emotional intelligence without directly instructing her. The research station's artificial environment seemed to shift. Where most would have seen a tense interaction between a warrior and a researcher, something more nuanced was developing. Junho wasn't afraid of Eunji. More importantly, he didn't see her as a weapon to be feared. One particular moment changed everything. Junho shared a self-deprecating joke about human awkwardness, a story about accidentally using the wrong cultural greeting and causing massive misunderstandings. For the first time, something strange happened to Eunji. A sound emerged from her throat, something between a grunt and a suppressed chuckle. The Krellin communication systems in her neural implant struggled to process this unexpected emotional response. Laughter was not in her programming. Emotional expression was considered a critical weakness in her culture. Yet, something was happening that her training had never prepared her for. Junho noticed the subtle change. He didn't draw attention to it. Instead, he continued sharing stories, each one carefully selected to challenge her understanding of emotional communication. He spoke about human resilience, about finding strength in vulnerability, about the power of understanding rather than destroying. The research station's logs would later show this as a pivotal moment. A Krellin warrior, known for absolute destruction, was experiencing something close to genuine human connection. Her entire operational system was being challenged by something as simple as a conversation. Eunji's neural networks began recalibrating. Each story, each shared experience was like a small crack in a massive wall of emotional suppression. She was experiencing something her entire civilization had deemed impossible: emotional growth through communication. The universe watched, unaware that this interaction would become a turning point. A human researcher was teaching a warrior that strength wasn't just about the ability to destroy, but about the capacity to understand. As their conversation continued, something remarkable was happening. Eunji was learning to see the world not just as a series of strategic calculations, but as a complex, interconnected system of experiences and emotions. Junho had done what no military force, no diplomatic mission had ever achieved. He was showing a warrior that there was more to existence than conflict. He was teaching her how to truly see the universe, not as a battlefield, but as a place of potential connection. Would you like me to continue with the next part of the story? Retrieve the diplomatic station Omega-7 hung in space like a delicate crystal, a neutral meeting point for civilizations that would have previously only communicated through warfare. Eunji arrived not as a weapon, but as a negotiator, a transformation that would have been impossible mere months earlier. The conflict seemed impossible to resolve. Two planetary systems, each with generations of hatred and complex territorial disputes, had been preparing for total war. Traditional diplomatic channels had failed repeatedly. Her next mission would not be just another contract. It would be the beginning of a transformation that no one, not even Eunji herself, could have predicted. Would you like me to continue with the next part of the story? The research vessel Horizon drifted silently through the star-studded blackness of space, its mission unremarkable by most standards. Chunho Park stood at the primary observation deck, his eyes fixed on the complex star charts displayed on the holographic interface. Unlike many researchers who became nervous in deep space, he remained calm, almost unnaturally so. The Horizon was conducting a routine xenoanthropological survey of the Orion Arm, mapping cultural interactions between emerging civilizations. Chunho's specialty was understanding communication patterns and social structures of species most considered incomprehensible. Where others saw chaos, he saw intricate systems of interaction. His current research focused on conflict resolution among species with seemingly impossible differences. Most of his colleagues thought his work was academic nonsense, a theoretical exercise with no practical application. But Chunho believed that understanding could prevent wars before they began. The ship's warning systems suddenly flickered. Something massive was approaching, something that didn't match any standard galactic vessel signature. The communication officers began preparing defensive protocols, their hands moving quickly across quantum communication panels. Chunho knew exactly what was happening before anyone else. The Shadow Razor, a vessel known throughout the galaxy as a harbinger of absolute destruction, was approaching. Most would have panicked. Most would have initiated emergency escape procedures. Chunho simply adjusted his glasses and waited. The Krellin warrior's ship moved with a predatory grace that was both beautiful and terrifying. Its stealth systems made it appear almost like a phantom against the starry background. Traditional defense systems would struggle to even detect its approach, let alone respond. On board the Horizon, tension grew. Junior officers whispered about the legendary Krellin warrior. Stories of her previous missions were legendary. Entire planetary resistance movements erased, corporate rebellions crushed within hours. Her reputation was not just about killing, but about making entire civilizations understand the futility of resistance. Chunho understood something his colleagues did not. Every conflict, no matter how violent, had a communication pathway. Every species, no matter how seemingly ruthless, had underlying logic. The Krellin were not monsters. They were a highly evolved civilization with complex internal rules and structures. When direct communication was established, most would have shown fear. Chunho showed curiosity. His communication approach was soft, almost gentle, requesting dialogue instead of presenting threat. The communication officers looked at him like he had lost his mind. The initial exchange was brief. Mathematical coordinates were shared, standard communication protocols established. But something in Chunho's approach was different. He didn't present as a threat. He presented as a student, someone wanting to understand rather than defend. The Krellin warrior on the other end, Yunji, would have typically terminated such a communication immediately. Unnecessary dialogue was a weakness in her operational protocols. But something in Chunho's communication patterns was unusual. He spoke about cultural exchange, about the beauty of understanding different perspectives. His language was technical yet philosophical, precise yet open. He shared complicated ideas as if they were simple observations, breaking down complex concepts into easily digestible pieces. Chunho's research had prepared him for this moment. He knew that true communication wasn't about winning, but about creating a bridge of understanding. The Krellin valued efficiency, logic, and clear communication. He would speak their language, but with a human touch. As the communication continued, something unexpected began happening. Yunji, who had never shown interest in anything beyond mission parameters, found herself listening, not just hearing, but genuinely processing the information being shared. The universe watched, unaware that this simple communication would become the first crack in a massive wall of misunderstanding. A human researcher and a Krellin warrior, two beings from completely different worlds, were about to change everything. Would you like me to continue with the next part of the story? Retrieve the space station orbiting the neutral zone became an unexpected meeting point for two beings who should never have understood each other. Chunho invited Eunji to a simple research area, a room filled with holographic displays and communication interfaces that seemed almost too peaceful for someone of her reputation.